Hi, friends. So this is a very relaxed after hours for the Europeans of us. Little stately fireside chat. The idea behind this is so that you can ask us any questions that you want about Stately and XState. If you have any use cases you want to share with us, if you've got repos where you want to share like your code base, something that you might want to do that you're not sure how to do, something you're struggling with that you might want help with, we have got two fantastic people here that can help solve your problems, and me who can cheer you all on. I'm really good at that. I'm Laura, and I do advocacy for Stately. Fazad, you?
Hello. I'm Fireside, and I do engineering in Stately.
And Kevin?
Yep, I'm Kevin, and I also do engineering at Stately.
So that's right, you got the engineers in, and they will help you out. I could do quite a bit of stuff, but I'm nowhere near the brains of these two. Folks, if you want to ask us any questions, David is here in the chat as well. So Fazal better watch how many times he claims to be the CEO of Stately. You can ask us questions in the chat. David, you can too if you really want. You can let us know on if you want to chat on Discord or on Mastodon or LinkedIn or Twitter. I'll keep an eye on all of those streams as well. And hey, if you've got something you want to share with us, you can always join us in the studio. If you just let me know your question, I will send you the URL so you can join us live, and that way we can share your screen and everything. That'll be exciting and new. So let's get going then, folks. Oh, what do you two want to chat about?
I don't know, Kevin. What do you want to chat about?
I mean, we often show off things that we've done when they're ready, but maybe there's other things we can just kind of talk about that we've been working on. Yeah, I mean, I can start. So we launched the ability to move machines from project to project, and so we knew that we wanted to get that out there, but we're making some improvements. We're gonna be able to let you see the visibility settings of your machines, whether they're like the projects, whether they're private and public and things like that, and you'll be able to create new projects in your teams and different things like that. So I've been working on improvements there.
Yeah. I don't know if I can disclose what I'm working on right now, but I'm working on a feature. I'm working on a feature that's a little groundbreaking in a sense that it touches everything in the studio. It also changes the underlying implementation of how we manage things in terms of the machine options that you provide in the diagram, say guards, descriptions, actions, invocations, and things like that. Everything that you can consider an option to the machine config. This feature is going to touch, and it's going to change how we think about them and how we treat them, so that it enables us to be more productive when we're creating machines or editing existing machines. Imagine a way for you to drag and drop, copy or cut different actions onto different edges, like events and nodes, be able to, say, copy an invocation from state A and paste it onto 3 different states at the same time, things like that. It also enables us to be a lot more smart in terms of communicating with the VS Code extension, or a lot of new other features that I can't also disclose. So good stuff are coming along the way pretty soon. I can't tell you what or how many. Ask David. But yeah, very, very groundbreaking stuff are coming to your way very, very soon.
I think all these features as well that help you speed up creating your machines, because that's a lot of the time when you're building a machine, you know basically what you want to do, and it's just the speed at which you can get all your ideas out there onto the canvas. And then from there, you might start changing your mind about how it's going to work. But it's that initial speed of just getting it all out there as quickly as possible that what you're designing, what you're building is going to make a huge difference too.
Exactly. David actually asked a question in the chat. What's the most interesting use of a state machine you have seen? It's good
I
question.
think a lot of the time we're seeing things that probably use state machines without necessarily knowing it. Like we have a habit, I think, as a team of every time we see something that works really well, we're like, oh, they definitely use a state machine. And then when you see something really bad, great example of this, Apple Music, the progress bar always advances even if the track is not playing. It's a problem I have quite often, and I always go, oh, they should use a state machine.
Yeah, I also found a bug similar to what you described about the Apple Music on my Apple CarPlay, where the remaining amount of time from the song that was playing was like a negative number. A negative not in terms of how much is remaining from the user perspective, but actually a negative number. So yeah, use the state machines. They're good. They're gonna fix a lot of bugs you probably don't know that you have.
So just to speak up for Apple for a second, in one of our recent internal editor hours, we actually were looking at some other Apple software, which was their photo editing. Let's say for iOS, and we don't have any view into exactly what goes into that, but we were just sort of coming up with how we might model that software ourselves, and it's complex. I mean, it's really, really sophisticated stuff, and so definitely a state machine would help out with that if they're not already using this.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing if I can grab if I share my screen, I'll be able to share it with you, what we came up with.
It was really fun because we were learning how this feature works. I think all of us had iPhone for a couple of years at least, right? We never realized that there's so many details happening in that little application right there. It's like
so
to be honest,
here,
I feel like Laura, Kevin, I feel like Apple is like by far one of the best providers of user experience out there in terms of operating systems. They're really good at UI. I'm being fair here.
Yeah.
And
and they definitely are. They definitely are using state machines.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You can't really pull off that greatness without state machines. That was bold.
So Farzad, you haven't seen this, I don't think. This is
no.
Evolution of the machine, because we all started off making it together, but this is what we ended up with. And you can see that we're quite heavily using the icons, so using images in the descriptions. But this is, and what do we end up calling this model, where you've got one central state and the transitions coming off of it and going back in, Kevin?
Yeah,
we decided on a name for it yet.
I mean, one possible name is sort of an out and back, which I guess I'm borrowing from, terminology describing some kinds of roller coasters that are sort of out and back, where you go out and then you come back. But at the same time, this one, it's kind of also sort of this spoke and hub and spoke model, as well, where you have something central and then you have different things radiating from that central node. So either way.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because there are these different views.
Yeah,
looks impressive though.
Well, I think one of the appeals that I have for this machine as well is that it's clearly it's a machine I think that would be really useful for designers. If you're working in the process with a bunch of designers and you're like, okay, well, I need icons for this state and that state and the other state, like you've got all of these different icons in here that these are all different things that need icons. So I think it's quite a cool use case for state machines for designers.
Yeah, and our very own Nick is also thinking about alternate views to states in the editor. So imagine a way for you to reference different pictures and screenshots of the actual UI or a wireframe when you're designing the model of your application. It might help you, because I mean, what's that saying in English, Laura? What was that? Like a picture is better than 1,000 words, something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, want to take that to the next level.
1,000 words.
Yeah. So it helps. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of development processes do end up being designers creating visuals for developers to work from. So this is kind of bringing those even closer together. So you actually get to collaborate on the flows rather than it just being chuck it over the wall situation.
Yeah, and I love it that it's gonna break the traditional way of software development where you're handed over a bunch of requirements from the business side, then UX or UI designer is going to go off and like a standalone design something based on their understanding of the business requirements, and then by the time they hand over the UI to you, you feel like there's a lot of gaps, a lot of unanswered questions, but you already have a UI that you need to implement. I'm sure it happens to any of us. I mean, all of us probably. This is how like most of the companies out there work, especially consultancies or agile teams that need to really move real fast. Yeah, so I love that you can still work based on visuals, but your entire team can be involved in the modeling phase.
Yeah, and
supposedly if you're using
it's
it.
also, it breaks the frustration that I have a lot with as someone who's done design and development. It's that lack of like relationship between the two. The fact that you can learn so much from working together and not having that kind of false separation between how you work, and it gives you the ability to iterate faster and to be able to make decisions really quickly up front, rather than producing all of these mock-ups and all these things that could just be chucked out within about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. That's true, yeah. So circling back to the question that David asked earlier about the what are like the wild examples of great state machines that I've seen out there, there was a reproduction of this Google Chrome has this offline game, the dinosaur one, that you jump off of cactus. Have you seen those? Like when you go offline, there's a little dinosaur that you can play with. It's a sort of like a platforming, like a very, very basic 2D platforming game. But I looked at the source code, and they were using Canvas and like, the background images and everything like that. It was like a 400 or 500 lines of code to model the game. But I also saw a reproduction of that was using State Machine, not XState, but like their implementation of a State Machine. And I loved it because reading the original source code, I couldn't really understand how things were done. But looking at the State Machine, even though I couldn't visualize it, I quickly grasped what that person was doing with the game. So that, I think that was the wildest example of a State Machine that I've ever seen in the wild.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned games, because I was also thinking that probably game implementations are really the most interesting things that I've seen. I don't have any examples off the top of my head, but just to be able to think of the planning that goes into a game, and the fact that you just cannot get into these unanticipated states, that makes no sense to end up in something that would basically end the game probably. So a lot of good examples probably are out there.
Yeah, even if you just think about the little non-player characters that you get in games, and the way that they move around when you're not interacting with them, like you see them, you're like, oh, that's a little State Machine going on there. They're just doing these little activities, just going on about their lives without you interacting.
Do you remember the site Mastery Games? I think it was.
Not really.
Yeah, I feel like maybe David Geddes was the creator. I think that perhaps.
Yeah. I remember that.
About State Machines.
Yeah. I remember that.
Those were so effective.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much design going on in that game. He I bet he has spent hours designing those characters and those platforms. It wasn't pixelated, but at the same time, it was really impressive for a developer to design those. I don't know if he's a designer though. Yeah,
they're really nice.
Yeah. I wanted to mention something, but I forgot. Oh yeah. So it's funny that when you think about the State Machines, you kind of also think about games at the same time, because, well, game developers were like many decades were using State Machines for modeling games. They're probably using State Machines in different layers. But one of my like early resources for learning State Machines were a chapter in a book called Game Programming Patterns, where it talks about the state design pattern, and it also briefly mentions the State Machines and how you can model like a hero character in a game using a State Machine, where they can jump and duck and think, and like it's really like clearly explain how you can't do like both of these actions at the same time, and to prevent that, you can either go imperative or use a State Machine. I just suddenly remembered that when you were talking about games.
It'd be quite cool to recreate that example, wouldn't it? Using the editor.
Yeah, cool. In terms
we have another question from David.
We do.
David asks us, if you were in a state machine hackathon, what would you create that would surely win?
I would make a better Twitter with state machines.
Is that what Twitter needs, or does Twitter need a whole lot more than that?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Depends on who's giving out the prize. If it's
you
David,
create
I would
a state
definitely
machine specifically for in order to get the prize, depending on the sponsor.
Yeah, I don't know. What would you model, Laura?
I've been working on this little demo app that's a white noise machine because it's something that I use all the time for my dog, who is currently sleeping, actually fast asleep, running in his sleep at my feet. And we use a white noise machine to like keep him calm when there's fireworks. And now we kind of got into the routine that he has it at night. I know a lot of people do this with babies. Our dog is like a baby, I guess. And I think is a really great example of a state machine because you can have different sounds, you have different volume levels, you have the light on and the light off. You can, but I was thinking it would be really cool if you could also introduce like visualizations into it, so you can have like soothing, like if you're listening to the wave sound, you could have like soothing waves. If you're listening to like nature sound, you could have like a nature visualization. So I've been working on a demo for that. So hopefully folks think that's cool because I'm gonna try and build it.
Also, you have that like work in progress, or you're starting to build that?
I have the machine as a work in progress. I started building
That's-
some graphics and stuff out for it as well.
That's-
But yeah, I started the
That's
machine.
awesome.
And I've started it, and in the editor hours that Kevin and I've been doing, I've learned so much about modeling that I already know how much I'm going to refactor it as well. Because right now, for example, I've got like a different state for every single like increment of like the volume level, which is completely unnecessary. And so now I know that. So I'll be able to, I think I'm coming at it from quite I don't know, maybe it's my design brain. I come at it from quite a like UI focused perspective.
I wouldn't say that, because if you were only dealing with the state machines, that was your only way of modeling it. The fact that we are using a state chart means that there is a context that makes that unnecessary. But you did it, the normal way of state machines.
Yeah, I guess so. Thank you. Making me feel better
sure.
about it.
That totally makes
Folks,
sense.
Laura never shared this with us, so this is the first time we're hearing about the white noise machine too. That's why we're surprised. This is genuine surprise.
I mean, I think that from our, editor hours, one of the things that we've, realized is that we need to be able to, as you said, sort of like get your ideas out there, get them into the canvas, and then just look at them and then think of how you can, whether refactor them or change them or evolve them. And of course, that's where something like versions will also help, because you can actually retain both things. You can decide, you know what, I don't want to go that direction, or I do. Yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah,
I think it's quite similar to coding anyway, isn't it? Because it's not like everyone writes the most efficient code that they can the first time they stick anything into an editor. Like you're usually writing some long-winded nonsense that you end up refining down into something that's more efficient.
Yeah, that's true.
Or
That's
is
how
that
I
just
write
me?
anything. No,
Yeah, it's true.
I mean,
Even
like-
text, yeah.
text, I will literally just jot down keywords. I'll just be like, this word came to my head, or I have a whole list of words. Then I move them around, then I put them together, then I make fragments, sentence phrases, whatever, and then I make paragraphs, etc. So yeah, it's just getting it out of my head and onto paper. Yeah.
Wow, no wonder why
Make a
English is
state
hard.
machine that you write a state machine that is like how to formulate sentences and things, couldn't you? Putting together a sentence as a state machine. That'd be very nerdy.
I mean, if you really want to have fun, we can ask ChatGPT to make that XState machine for us.
Okay. Here we go. We got some suggestions as well here. Carlos was saying a BPM editor, which is a business process modeling, which could be pretty interesting. Ivor said, I'd love to see more examples about how can XState be used to develop server-side apps. e.g. email drip campaigns, workflow automation, etc. I'm aware this topic has been previously raised by others. But this is why we need Gavin as well, because Gavin is such a server-side head that he has so many ideas for it.
I mean, mentioning back the idea of groundbreaking features I talked about, half of it at least is about the workflows on server sides. So stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. David says, "Oh, show us some Chat GPT machines." Do you want to try doing that, Farzad?
I sure if you promise not to take a look at my ridiculous chats with ChatGPT. I ask about everything.
You know, it's just AI. It's not a friend, right?
I know, it's just too smart.
Well,
so what are we gonna ask the ChatGPT thing? What do we want to model?
It's a fun one to make. Well, you said it about me saying that we should do a sentence, but I think that might be a little bit meta and confusing for it. What would be a fun thing? Well, like using a microwave. Or do you think we should do something that's app specific?
I'm absolutely without any ideas right now. Donut maker.
David says traffic light turnstile candy. What's a candy machine? I don't know what a candy machine is. Donut maker.
Is it like the thing where you just put the coin in, you turn the knob? Right. Is that
David likes microwave as well. Oh, the like the oh right, like the I know what you mean.
The gumball machine where you just put the coin in, you have to turn the knob, then it comes out. Yeah.
What's a candy machine? David says a machine that dispenses candy. Thanks, David. That's so helpful.
Mystery solved.
Yeah.
There's just so much jargon to keep track of in technology.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go on, then ask it to do a candy machine.
I'm going to try
to settle this argument for once and for all.
Okay. Let's see if I can. Great. Okay. So let me know if you can see my screen already.
We can see your screen.
Great. Don't look at this part. No, I'm just kidding. Just go ahead and read anything you want. So, build me. Okay. So how would a XState machine for modeling a, what was that? A candy machine? Look like? I recently realized that I can ask ChatGPT in my native language, which is Farsi, and it just understands it and like speaks like a native Farsi, like a Persian.
Wow.
Yeah, Iranian person. It's really terrifying.
Oh, I'll read it. Candy machine is a simple state machine that can be modeled using XState. The following is an example of how such a state machine might look. I'm not going to read the code, but we're watching it.
Looks good so far.
Well, it's a candy machine.
We were debating on the default name for the state. Laura, Kevin, do you remember that in the editor hour? Whether it's being idle or something else. ChatGPT uses idle. That's settled, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, it dispenses candy. Has this been listening to David?
David, are you typing this line by line?
David says, unfortunately, ChatGPT/Copilot likes to use the old XState syntax.
Right, yeah. I didn't realize that.
Okay, so it dispenses candy and sometimes it's out of order. And that's it.
You know what? This is fun, actually. I don't know if you can see my screen, but maybe I can try to share my screen, like the whole Chrome. So, yeah. There you go. Can you see my screen now?
It's coming up. Give it a second. There we go.
Mhm.
I'm just going to put us
Great,
to one
okay.
side. There we go.
Okay, so I just copied the code from ChatGPT and I want to paste it here and see what it looks like. Great. No, not this one.
Oh, it's really big, then it's
Okay.
really small.
Okay, so it starts from the idle state and you can select the candy, I suppose. Then it starts
Yes,
going to
that can be.
dispensing. And great that dispense candy is a fire and forget action, because the machine doesn't really care if it actually dispenses or not. For most of the cases, it doesn't. And it's funny that it used explicit event names instead of invocations.
Mhm.
So it used the fire and forget entry action, and it assumed that success and error are going to be sent to this machine externally, which I don't think is the case.
So how would you
There's no
remodel it?
external actor. Yeah, that's a good question. So if I were to do this, I don't know if we can say that the dispense candy thing can be an invocation, like a sort of maybe like a hardware service internally, something like that. But let's add an invocation here and let's call that dispense candy. And let me just remove that entry action. Okay, let's remove this events, and then on done, this should go to here, and then on error should go here. Okay, and if there's a reset, it goes to idle, which I don't think matters. I never use a candy machine. Have you? Does it have a reset button?
Would there be a reset button? I guess a reset might be something that happens after a certain period of time. Like if you started entering in your information, but that's kind of a different state. If you like, I don't know, I'm thinking these machines where you like select a number and it dispenses the corresponding number. You could reset during that, but otherwise I can't think of why you'd have a reset.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm just going to remove this. This doesn't make sense. But there's I don't know if there's a cancel button really on the hardware level on those devices, but if there was a cancel, you could just transition out of dispenses and go back to idle. Because XState is so fantastic, it probably has a way to cancel this dispense candy invocation, if it can be canceled.
Davis is resetting is kicking it.
Great.
So it's interesting that all this candy is going to just come out for free because you don't have any kind of like payment state. So you just select the candy and then it just comes.
Maybe it's a charity device. You don't know that.
That's true. John wonders whether we should have a timeout for an abandoned transaction.
So here, for example, I mean, where? I don't understand that.
I guess the timeout would probably be during, like, if there was more going on inside of the select event.
Right. Okay. So
because
okay. So that should be added to the dispensing one, right? Because this is sort of like the loading state. We can probably.
Davis is like, if it's taking too long to dispense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This might take too long. So in that case, yeah. If you cancel it, it will go back. And sorry, what were we supposed to add? I just have the memory of it.
Taking too long to select, transition back.
Isn't that cancel though?
So that would be an after, would that not?
Right, okay.
Like,
now I get it, yeah, all right.
Because if you,
So how long would that be? Maybe
we want to give them a decent amount of time. Yeah.
So that will be 60, right? Yeah. So if you explicitly cancel, we'll go back. All right. I'm not sure if this looks better. Anyway, if you're in idle and you select, it goes to dispensing. You can cancel yourself, or it will cancel automatically after a minute. And error happens, it goes to out of order. That's where it needs to wait for somebody to reset it. Oh, maybe that was the point of reset, like a hardware reset from like a service man or something. I don't know. But if you
Yeah.
kick it, you can treat it
Yeah.
as resetting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this looks good. The funny thing is I thought it's gonna be a really stupid, simple machine, but it challenged me a little bit.
John says, "Oh, I'm thinking like a vending machine. Select item X, display price, add funds, dispense." Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, John. I just couldn't think of the word vending. Hey, we got another idea. We could try modeling from
Sure.
Johannes. Recently had a need for a refreshing app state when a web page wakes up after having been frozen. A little self-contained machine to handle this would be awesome. Maybe writing to local storage every once in a while to say cross-browser compatible. What do you reckon?
So I'm gonna have to read that again.
Yeah. So what's the first part again? It's
Hang on, I'll pop it up and read it. Recently had a need for a refreshing app state when a web page wakes up after having been frozen. A self-contained machine to handle it. Maybe that machine writes to local storage every once in a while to stay cross-browser compatible.
I mean,
So it would work cross-browser.
yeah, so probably you need a machine that's running by default, right? And maybe let's say foreground. That's the word, right? Foreground and background.
Yep, that's a word. You've got a D at the end rather than F, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, this is my faulty keyboard. I haven't bought the new one yet.
Yeah. Blame the keyboard.
Oh my god, I forgot that I'm with people who actually know me. Yeah, so when the app is on the is on the foreground, this is when the tab that your app is running in is active in your browser, and you can do whatever you want here. Maybe we can have like a state. We can have a bunch of states here. This is just for demonstration. App state changed or something, and then you still go here, but you probably want. Oh no, not that. But you probably want to maybe have like an action or something. Yeah, like update app state or something. You wish that the application level state management would be as simple as this. And then when you go into background, page inactive or something, this is funny because we have a web API that you can get this information from, and you can subscribe to that. We can actually.
Yeah, that's
what
Johannes brought that up. He said, I think Chrome has a concept of a freeze and resume event when a tab gets frozen or woken up. Is that what you're talking about with the web API?
Right. Yeah, I think so. I was thinking more like a browser level API that you could detect if the app is in the background or not, like a simple check. But you can also subscribe to what the Johannes was saying. The problem is we yet don't have a great way of showing like callback invocations in the editor. So I don't know how, like what a great experience would it be if I just mentioned like an invocation here, but maybe we can do that. Listen to, let's say, browser active tab or something. Yep. And if the application, imagine that this is like invoke callback. We don't want it to be a promise. It's actually not a promise on the browser level. So when the page goes into the background, you will detect this using the web API, and then you will have to send an explicit event to this very own machine here. Let's say that page is inactive. And if that happens, you go to the background state. And then what else? So when you're in the background and the page gets active again, page back active, this is where you want to reset the application state, right? So all you need to do is to add a transition action here and say set app state. Now, I don't know. I haven't tried this yet. If when the browser tab goes into the background state, whether the memory is still preserved or not. But if it is, great. Your app state is right there in the memory that's frozen. And when you get back, you can just reset the app state. If not, you can use local storage. I don't really know this API very well to be a judge of that.
Yeah,
Kevin, Laura,
because
you
Jan
have
says, what
maybe-
if the computer
Yeah.
got put if the computer got put to sleep? I don't think the app would know anything has happened. It would just need to detect that it was previously frozen and emit its own event.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, in that case, whenever the application state changes, you need to update the app state, however you're doing it, and then maybe write to local storage or something, the new application state. So when you're going from background to foreground, then you not only do you have to reset the application state in the memory. I think this just happens automatically if you're coming from a frozen tab, so we don't have to do that. The memory is just reset probably. All you need to do is to read from local storage and maybe resume app state from there, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that
Mhm.
that fits in with what Johanna said. Hence, thinking writing a timestamp to local storage at regular intervals and checking the time elapsed. That's
Yeah,
a way
but
of
this-
reading and writing.
this won't
to
work,
local
though.
storage.
Right? Because this machine is not going to be alive while the tab is frozen. This is also part of the memory that's gone. Yeah. So
Right.
So I think what you need is like you would need a feature that Davis were working on today as a proof of concept, but it's not yet released. But this is called the choice node. David, I'm disclosing that. But you can have like a way of checking app state from local storage or something. Let's say checking state. This is where we want to read from local storage and check if, and maybe hydrate the app state. Great. So that could be the initial state of your machine, and you can run this globally in your app, which checks that. So we can read that, and then if the application there is existing state, so if that's the case, you want to send this maybe something like that. Maybe go to running, but then in this case, add like a transition action saying resume app state, something like that. This is going to be easy with XState because you can pass the initial state object to the XState interpreter and let the runtime figure out how to continue from a given state. But if you have any sort of like previously executed side effects that need to be replayed, this is not yet possible in version 4, but this is probably going to be possible in version 5. At least it's probably an opt-in API. Maybe David can tell us that like in a better way. Anyway, if there is not there, maybe go from initial state or something like that. But guys, a little help here.
No, you don't need help.
No,
I think you've done a great job.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to understand if this is a feasible way of using the state machine, because these two will end up in the same state. You just have to run a conditional action, whether you need to continue from a given state or just start from the initial state of your machine. So I don't think like a state machine is a feasible way of modeling this.
Maybe
Yeah,
I mean,
that
you
alone
could
doesn't
have a
seem
state
necessary.
machine for your application, but probably this check can be a simple if else, something like that. Maybe something like, maybe something
John
like this.
suggested you might want a delay loop that updates the context with the current time and checks the delta from the previous time.
So why would you care about the delta or the diff if all you need to pass to your state machine interpreter is the initial state? I mean, if you knew what was the last state and you persisted that in local storage,
Because if you're always writing at regular increments, and then you do a read and you see that more than that time has transpired, then you know that there's just a gap, and that perhaps you.
We're talking about the timestamp on the persistent state in local storage. Okay, so for you as a way to validate whether you have to take that into account or not.
Yeah, that like you missed something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably something like that. But I'm not sure how I can model this in the editor right now here. Yeah, that's about that.
All right,
well, I'm just going to go back to a question that David has already answered, but just so that we've got this covered in audio form, I suppose. Ragnar asked, this has probably already been discussed in previous streams, but is there a plan to have functionality in the editor that allows the editing and creation of typed contexts? And David responded, yes, we are working on adding schema for context, events, actions, etc. directly in the editor and providing that schema to TypeScript output. And even further, with that schema, it would become possible to generate forms for custom event payloads.
We literally had this discussion today.
More discussion going on of the delay on the machine. So if it's longer than the delay, then you're probably asleep. So that's a way of working out. And because if the tab isn't running, it won't be updating the timestamp. So checking for a large delta means we have slept.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does feel.
This is John says this is where we need multi-cursor editor chaos so we can build state machines by committee. Oh, you think that's a fun idea, do you? We shall be introducing chaos at some point, don't you worry.
Chaos can come, yeah.
Yeah. Kevin and I have been desperate for chaos for a long time because right now we have a way of working on machines together where one person drives and the other person watches and can refresh the tab. So you can do it manually. It's just not ideal.
Well, first of all, we're working in a team project, right? So we're actually working in a team project, so we have both access to that same project as editors. But then in addition, one person is driving, the other person knows they shouldn't touch it, but they can refresh whenever. And then you could always switch the driver by then saying we're switching. And then the other person can actually make the changes while the first person just goes and refreshes. So it's it's not real time.
It's a convention now.
Realish time.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's our convention. Stately chaos mode.
How long you can survive without messing up with the other person's machine. Chaos mode.
Yeah, well, soon we'll have versions, so it won't matter if you've messed up a machine so much. If you're saving regular versions, you'll be able to go back. Should make sure you get in practice of saving your versions as you go.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good question. Kevin, what would you say would be your best practice on at what point would you save a version out?
I mean, I'm kind of aggressive with the with saving anything, Command S. That's why, I did mention that, maybe we should think about adding a keyboard shortcut for saving a version as well. I do those things all the time. But in terms
I remember,
of,
just in the.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, just in the age of working in graphics editors for such a long time before autosave was a thing, it was like muscle memory to Command S constantly because you knew what you were building wouldn't be autosave.
Yeah, that's the same in code editor. Just Command S all the time.
Bring up the autosave is a good point, right? Because we're not talking about actually saving, so what I'm doing is I'm just saving things because I'm, worried that they're just going to get lost. But we already do autosave, right? So with all those changes, we already have that saved. So it's really more about tagging this, as an explicit version, which is more akin to explicitly making a git commit or something like that, or even making a branch, something very explicit. So those would be more milestone based. Let's say you've you've made a pass at something and you know that you want to maybe switch back to that and compare it at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I like likening it to commits. Also, that people do have different strategies when it comes to commits as well. Like you might be one of these
That's true.
commit early, commit often people. You might be someone who waits until you've actually got a working like bit of code before you commit it.
What do you,
You're like
what do
one
you
of those
like to
people
do?
that says typo.
Yeah.
I like to commit things that work, but I also like frequent and very detailed commit messages. That's my kind of vibe.
Yeah, I prefer small granular commits usually.
So you guys have like 100 commits when you're building a feature.
Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I
How
guess
about
we're
you,
not the
Faisal?
same person.
That's not your approach.
We're not the same person. No, I think
You're just
I'm
like
on
one
the boat
commit at the end.
Well, David can
Done.
tell you his experience with reviewing my PRs. But yeah, joking aside, I feel like I need to commit at a point where it's safe for the commits to be replayed at any time. Because there are like some people who actually like religiously believe in Git history, so that they think that they can. I mean, the point of source control is that you can go back in time using commits, right? So I feel like if somebody is using that feature and wants to go back into the commits that I made, they expect everything to work. So I wait for that perfect moment to commit everything. Otherwise, I just use a heavy use of a stash.
What's your threshold for work?
Yeah,
Like what do you mean? Like you mean like
Well,
the app compiles, like the feature has no bugs?
Everything like the whole lint and build and pre-commit hook, they all pass, and I have at least like a bare bone version of the feature working. But it's not like you work out the entire feature in one commit. It's like you break down into different milestones and different subtasks, and then treat each of those subtasks as a commit target. Yeah, so I guess breaking down is
that just on a more broken down version. Yeah, because I wouldn't commit things that are broken, but I would commit things that are like partially complete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
This is an interesting thing that John's brought up. Prettier for action style would help stop mixing shouty case with long descriptive action names. And this is something, the style of how you write all of the different aspects of your state machine is something that Kevin and I have been discussing quite a lot. Because we don't think there's one true style, but we do think that we could have like named uniform styles that you could actually maybe even choose that could then auto format for you.
Yeah, Laura, we've talked about this as being kind of similar to color themes or color palettes, where you can choose the one you like out of several choices, but the idea is that there's enough contrast between the colors in the palette, or between the colors in the theme, so that things make sense and are distinguishable, right? So you may choose to do shouty case in one case, and then for something else you don't do that, but at least you can tell the difference between them. And then someone else may want to just reverse those or invert those and use it for something else. So I think that that's probably the most important thing. And then you can still have your own style. So yeah, we talked about actually putting out almost like a style guide, options, where it's just these sets of, if you use camel case for this, then maybe you want to use caps for this, or you could use not caps, or you could use sentence case or whatever it is. So yeah, we can keep working on that. I'd be curious to see what people like to do the most, like what they, which ones they vote on or choose. That would be interesting to see what people are using.
We could maybe even run like something over all of the public machines that we've got and see what the most common applications are and common combinations as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think they've evolved. I mean, I know my personal style has evolved for sure. I used to do the shouty thing and whatever. And now I do more just sentence case and stuff like that. So yeah, I actually just updated a
do you
machine.
Think... Sorry, carry on.
Oh, I was just saying, I just
You just
updated a machine, and by the way, I did it in one commit that was just about changing the case of stuff. And so that was like, oh, that's a little granular thing I want to do, and it's not going to break anything, so that's nice.
Do you think that there's a use case where folks might want to have the case or the style that they use different in the studio compared to what they want in the exported code? Like,
Well,
for
I'd be
example,
interested to know the
maybe
use
in your
case.
code you like to have like camel case. You don't necessarily want to have spaces in everything. And maybe that's your preference, but actually you want something that's more readable when you're working inside of the studio. Or maybe not.
I mean, this is definitely doable, but I'd be interested to know more use cases, like at least like get votes on that on Canny or something. If enough people want it, this should be doable.
So it's kind of like Prettier, where like at first people had all these opinions, and then the whole idea was that Prettier just let you not care about that so much. I mean, you can have an opinion and set up your your rules or whatever, but beyond that, you're not supposed to care about it. So I wonder if it would be interesting to just allow you to just change in the UI in the studio, like, oh, I just want to use this set, and it can actually just transform all of the ones, all the actions to be that, and all of the events to be this. And then you can just change it whenever you want. And it's more like a display setting than it is even affecting the export code, let's say.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this won't work with any other language than English, but everybody codes in English, I guess, at least the majority of developers. So yeah. I would compare it to Linter than Prettier, because I feel like Prettier is like about the styling, but Linter is the one that actually has the rules that changes those naming conventions. I mean, this is just a nitpick.
No, it's a good way of thinking about it. John says, I like the readability of sentence case, but the contrast of shouty case. The latter would be better with color in the studio. Well, you've not got long to wait for that, I don't think. The visual contrast of shouty case. Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess we're like most of the people that I saw most of the devs that are used to shouty case are usually coming from like the Redux world or somewhere else that made these conventions more popular than they were before. Anyone who worked with Redux knows that there is like a unwritten convention that you use these sort of all caps underscored names for our events. And I feel like if you use the state charts as a refactor target, and you want to make it easier for your team to migrate from like a shouty case old use of state management tooling to state machines, you probably want to use that feature, this imaginary feature, to model everything using sentence case, but still export everything to the shouty case for a more buttery smooth migration in the code. I mean, that's a very edge case, but yeah.
And apparently Copilot loves the shouty case. I guess
Copilot
if you rely on Copilot to write your code.
Yeah, it learned from the shouty case.
TypeScript really helps you to also not worry about this stuff, right? Because if you have very long-winded, sentence casey things, like as long as they show up as one of your, autocompletes, or as long as they're recognized and you can get an error if you mistype that long thing because it's long and error prone, then you don't have to worry about that. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, TypeChain really changed everything.
We may need to summon David back to answer this, but we'll see what you two think. One other thought, using the new context API in React, create actor context, how would you rely on the other higher contexts, for example, a user context in that provider?
So I would assume, like I never did that myself, but I would assume that the provider component for any context in React is also still a React component. So you should be able to refer to any context in the upper tree inside that provider. Kevin, what do you think?
Well, is this saying that if you have a custom context that you're passing down from create actor context, Like, how does that reference other?
How does it reference the
providers?
context providers that are wrapping it? So if you have like context A that's wrapping context provider, you should still be technically available to access that inside your actor provider. I mean, I never did that, but you should be able to do use contexts in. Can you do that like in React? I don't know.
As David says, not easy to do right now, because the actor is only provided to components below the provider. So now we know. But if you're trying to provide data from above the provider, you need to do it in a child component. But maybe we can make some changes here.
David, can you technically refer to any upper context inside the provider of create actor context?
Got to wait for him to type a response. You don't get the typing bubbles in. There we go. Easiest thing to do: put provider at the top level, sync your data in a component inside. So there we go. We've only got a few minutes left. Is there anything else that we wanted to chat about at our Firesides? The only person that actually had a Fireside right now is Kevin.
Literal Fireside.
It's a very nice Fireside.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, David says repeat. Maybe we can take it in another Fireside because we're running out of time now. But I'll ask in the next one, I promise.
We can try some stuff out too, and have some examples.
Yeah, I mean, folks, if you want to let us know what you want to discuss in the next Fireside or when you want it to be, like, let us know these things. We're pretty flexible, aren't we? And we could do more of these. I like the chilled vibe of it. It's nice when we're not having to demo lots of new features.
Yeah, and this is an opportunity for everybody from the community to be also part of the stream. So if you want to join, just join, and then maybe you can share your screen, show off what you built. We'd be interested to see everything.
Yeah. As John says, I've got some super long-winded questions better suited for Discord. Hey, you can bring your long-winded questions. We'll try them. And we're running out of firewood, says Jonas. Yeah, it's starting to get cold. Down to the embers. Well, hey, shall we wrap up then, folks? If you want to... Oh, there you go. It's my clock telling me that it's time to wrap up. So we'll catch you the next one. If you follow us on the socials, you'll be able to find out when we're having our next Fireside. If you subscribe to Stately AI on YouTube, you'll be able to get a notification whenever we're doing a stream. You can also use the little notify me button that will remind you when we, like, just before the stream starts as well. So subscribe to us. It's the best way to catch up with everything that we're doing. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Anything else you two want to say?
Everyone.
Yeah, it was great.
Fun.
Goodbye.
Yeah, look forward to the next one.
Bye. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.